just stabilize your body, be comfortable in your posture. Then stabilize your mind. So for a while, just forget about what you were doing just this morning, what's going to happen later on. Just stay still. Let the mind stay still. And then in the space in front, visualize Shakyamuni Buddha, golden in color. Try and first get the presence of this being. Remember all his qualities, the qualities of his body, speech, mind. How he's completely purified his mind from all stains, all fears, all disturbing emotions are gone. So a completely fearless state of mind, and a completely realized state of mind with limitless love, compassion, patience. And with that mind, he taught the Four Noble Truths, how we got into this big mess of samsara, where it all came from, how to get ourselves out from samsara. So think not only of the Buddha, Shakyamuni, think of all the Buddhas who've gone by, who are still existing, their minds still existing. So in these beings we take refuge, we ask for protection and guidance. So that's the causal refuge, for the ones who have already achieved that enlightenment, and we go for our own purified mind, a resultant refuge from where we can really help and benefit others. So I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly by the virtue from the teachings, listening to teachings, meditating, etc. May I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. To try and stabilize those words in the mind. And then we offer all the things we own and don't own. We can mentally fabricate everything that's beautiful for us, the whole universe, everything that's precious in the universe, and offer it as a thanksgiving, as also a request. Please bless us, please bless our minds to be able to integrate the Dharma into our lives. Saji Purgi Jukshu Meto Tam Rirab Linji Nide Gyambadi Sange Shindu Mite Uwai Trokunanda Chingla Chupashu Idam Guru Ratna Mandala Kamniria Daya. So you can imagine waves of yellow light from the body of Shakyamuni Buddha coming, absorbing into us, cleansing our minds, making it ready, receptive for the teachings. Okay, so what did we cover last time? So the Buddha himself, the Buddha actually, the historical Buddha that came, but again, try to remember, of course, that is the main figure that we take refuge from, take protection from. But remember that the Buddhas have been coming endlessly throughout time, right? So this is one of the Buddhas, the historical, what we call the wheel-turning Buddhas, because they again, like, teach the Four Noble Truths. And all the Buddhas will do the same thing. And they will all do what we talked about last time, the 12 deeds, the 12 actions. They will all do exactly that, the birth, the miraculous activities, and then the 6 years of ascetic practice, and then sitting under the tree. They sit on the different trees, apparently, not not the same type of tree, because this historical Buddha sit under the Bodhi tree, right? But each Buddha has a different kind of tree, but they will sit under a tree to get their enlightenment, and they will teach and show the passing away. Yeah, right? So again, try to remember the Buddha we're talking about in the Mahayana tradition. It was all an emanation. Yeah, the whole thing, the birth, the activities of the youth, the growing up, and the ascetic practices, everything was like an emanation, because he's already been enlightened in another lifetime, many lifetimes ago, and from that he had to kind of wait. Of course, he was acting his, because when you reach Buddhahood, when each of us reaches our enlightenment, we act spontaneously. We're not like thinking, oh, I'm not sure, should I go and help Barbara in Santa Fe? No, maybe not. No. It's not like that. If Barbara has a connection with me or whoever's in life, you go, right, and you manifest to help Barbara or whoever, like this, I'm joining the teaching. Whoever with a karmic connection will be there. So Buddha Shakyamuni had a karmic connection with us, but we weren't ready, in that time, 3,000 years ago. We weren't ready as disciples. So then he came when the karma was right. I mean, he was already acting out many activities, maybe all the other different realms. But then at this time, he took this kind of emanation as Shakyamuni Buddha. So the dream that the mother had with the white elephant coming in the womb, etc. The whole birth was all like a show, basically. Even the passing away. So of course he passed away because he took a physical body, but his mind is still active and still helping beings. So in our sutras, so I'm not sure what the Pali texts say, the Pali traditions. In our sutras, there's many um, quotations of the Buddha saying, I will benefit beings in many emanations after my passing away, as abbots, as teachers, etc. So that's why in our tradition, we're extremely careful when we take a teacher and we have an abbot or something, because we don't know if the abbot is the emanation of Shakyamuni Buddha. Because if it is, of course, if it's not, still not very good karma. I feel disrespectful to the abbot or teacher, but still, it's heavier if it's actually the emanation of the Buddha, right? So we'd be very careful. Just like when we don't get angry, because anybody could be a bodhisattva. We don't know what who bodhisattvas are. They don't come with shining light auras around their head. So we're very careful, because somebody is, even shows a ruffled face to us. We have to take it all as, well, I'm not sure who that person could be, a bodhisattva teaching me not to be like that. So to really use these mind training practices, because otherwise we create very heavy karma, right? So there's a causal Buddha, the kind of historical Buddhas, all the Buddhas have achieved their own enlightenment outside ourselves, right? Then we're trying to achieve the same thing. That's when we become a resultant refuge, when we actually protect others. So try to remember the Buddha's qualities in terms of his body, like we have these amazing pictures and statues. It's a bit hard to relate to because it looks a bit strange, right? The Buddha had these kind of qualities. Like if you read Geshe Zopa's text, they say the Buddha had this golden colored skin. He said, well, it's a bit weird. How can a human have a gold colored skin? So it meant he had a very smooth complexion, kind of very healthy complexion, maybe like a nice tan or something like that. So people are like, oh, Then he had this kind of, so some features are a bit strange, like the Ushnisa on the crown, like it's like a protrusion of the head actually. So they say due to many causes, like one of them could be visualizing the guru above the crown of his head many lifetimes as he's practicing. But each of those features he had, his eyes, his kind of ruby red lips, his red tongue, everything had a specific cause. So Some of the texts, I think it's called the ornament, has all the like 30 marks and signs. Each one has a different cause, right? So of course we do the same thing. We will get that. The result is we want to get a similar form. So why is that form important? Because when it comes in those times and people look at it, you're attracted to it. Even now, just the pictures of it attract us, you know. So in that way, we're kind of first drawn physically. And then, of course, he teaches them. The teaching is one that hits us. It should hit home. Just looking is not enough because you can look at a statue and pray and pray and pray, but it's not going to do anything for you, right? Like I guess she's quite into this. He really the abbot. He really kind of stresses this that it's the, the words he said are so important because and he actually goes back to the Dalai Lama, quite often quoting how there's many fantastic statues in the world. There was one recently built, I think, in near Sopema. Sopema is up near Dharamsala. It's a holy site for Padmasambhava, actually. And they built this huge statue of Padmasambhava, very gilded and gold, and it's very beautiful. The Dalai Lama would often quote, well, it's great. Look at the statue, it's there, sitting there, in the rain, in the wind, there's pigeons coming on it, pooing on it, doesn't move, doesn't flinch. And you can pray and make offers as much as you want, but that statue will never going to speak to you as an ordinary person. For a high realized being, it might speak, but for you as an ordinary person, it will never speak. So great to have a statue, very nice to make offerings, create merit, but the real teaching comes from the teachers, right? So then there is the Dalai Lama, Lama Zopa Rinpoche, all these great abbots. So those are the ones actually giving that if the Buddha was still alive, it's exactly what they're doing, right? The Dalai Lama is doing. If the Buddha was around now, it wouldn't be any different to what the Dalai Lama is doing these days, right? So those are the ones, and the words are coming from the Buddha. It's still being transmitted by people like the Dalai Lama, Lama Zopa Rinpoche, and all these great beings in all the four traditions. Right? So that's what we now actually focus on more. So of course, ideally, we look at the Buddha, we're kind of the faith is there because we see this amazing being and think, wow, how did he get like this? Yeah. And also his comportment, he's not scared, doesn't show any frightening movements, he's very calm, he speaks, even his speech, they say his speech was, he was able to answer all the people, all these different questions. With one answer, he was able to pacify all the people's questions and doubts. So that kind of power of speech was there. So that. And then, of course, the mind, even the speech activity and the body, even the body form came due to his mind. Why? Because of great knowledge. Yeah. So when we say he's omniscient, he means he knows every phenomenon that exists. Every phenomenon. I mean, it's mind blowing, right? But like one of our texts also says he knows every kind of fish, even the fish that we haven't even seen yet, under the water. Even the scientists haven't figured out deep in the oceans. So he'll know everything that exists. But that's not what we're worried about. We don't care about how many varieties of fish existing in the world. That doesn't help our minds, right? What helps is he knows exactly what methods are needed to tame the mind. Yeah, so this is what we're looking for. No? We're looking for peace. I mean, real peace, where the disturbing emotions don't come up at all. That's when we call it a true cessation. So cessation means stopping, a complete stopping of all the afflictions. It's just it's a crazy idea, but it's possible because this person did it, right? And then he continued to teach us how to do it. So that's the second and third and fourth noble truth. Yeah? The true cessation is a stopping of all those afflictions. The true path is how to do that, right? So when we talk about the Dharma, you know, we're talking about those last two things, the true cessation and the true paths. So then, of course, there's many levels of them, right? So when we look at our major afflictions, we have to kind of really take them out because there's a huge pot of disturbing emotions in our, we go and call it our brain, but in our mind, right? So there's so we have, why do we worry? Why have we got fear? All these things, So a lot of it comes due to attachment and aversion, right? So when you see fear in the Buddha, fear is a mind, right? Definitely a mind. But in terms of the Buddhist classification of minds, Buddha gave a very clear, he gave kind of what we call 51 mental factors, and fear doesn't come up in any of those things. So even fear, see, one of the first levels of refuge was fear of the lower realms, right? So we're talking about like a healthy fear, not like a paranoid fear, a healthy fear because it's possible. Like when we talked about it last time, our mind does go on, yeah. And what determines where it goes is what actions we've done. So that's talking about karma. So if it goes on, and we kind of check realistically how much of our actions are kind of really positive. I mean, that will lead to a positive rebirth. We have to be realistic. It's probably not that many, and we don't know what we've done last lives that may be triggered into this end of this life. So then that brings a healthy fear. They think, well, okay, I better get ready because anything can happen. So then that fear is because a mind that doesn't want to experience something. Yeah. Just like fear we have in these days, it's an unpleasant feeling, basically. So unpleasant feelings sometimes are useful, right? Normally we think, well, I want to get rid of it, but actually some of them are very useful for the path, to even our daily life, if you don't, if you don't want to be too unhealthy as we get older, or, we're careful, right? We're kind of, we have a fear what might happen, what sickness might happen later on, or or the consequence of smoking or overeating some food which we really like to eat, but in fact it's going to lead us to sickness. So we have to take care, right? So there's a fear of what might happen if we keep eating that, or doing a certain habit that's unhealthy for us. So with that fear, we stop. So same with this, yeah. With that kind of healthy fear that we don't know where we're going to go next life, is probably going to be unfortunate realm. So then we have to, that fear comes up, and it's okay. I'll do something to stop myself going there. So that's the first type of first level of refuge. We think, well, I'm not going to go there. What can I do? So we ban the 10 non-virtues. This is the first level of ethical conduct the Buddha gave. All the Buddha's teachings are about non-harm, but this is the first level, the gross level. That a lot of people, we can manage that, right? So we have to look at all of those 10 really carefully, how we actually commit, or in a complete way, because when you break them completely, that's what makes the projecting karma. At the end of this life, as we're dying, hopefully dying peacefully, but still that mind will come up. Me, this is very strong notion of I want to keep existing. That kind of attachment is the one that then nourishes our seeds of karma. So the heaviest ones normally get nourished first. If you're the heaviest negative karma with all the four causes, that will get nourished first. And that's what pushes us into the next life, the in-between state and the next life. Right, so that kind of fear comes, then we try to avoid the 10 non-virtues. So we have this faith and trust that the Buddha, who was this amazing kind of being with all these amazing qualities of body, speech, and mind, then has this skill to stop us from going there. The skill he had was to first say, okay, because the karma isn't something he sat under that Bodhi tree and said, right, let's see, if I say this, if I say karma exists like this, killing is going to lead to this, and stealing will lead to this kind of rebirth. It wasn't like he made it up, right? What he did was, when he sat on that tree, he had this amazing clairvoyance. He could see how karma works. It wasn't something he kind of invented, like you turn the wheel, like, let's make up a theory about karma. It's just he saw with clairvoyance exactly how. First, he saw his clairvoyance his own past lives, right? All the activities he'd done, all the virtue he'd done to bring him right now to sit there under that tree, and that was his last kind of so-called off-gain manifestation, the last meditation before reaching enlightenment. So even some of our, especially our tradition, our pictures, our statues in the Mahayana tradition, not so much in the other traditions, you see the Buddha seated with his left hand on the lap, like in meditation, and his right hand is over his right knee, touching touching the moon cushion, of course, but it was actually, it's called the earth touching mudra. Why? Because when he was sitting under that tree, all these Mara's interfering forces came to disturb him, saying, "Well, what gives you the right?" Because they knew that was going to be the last meditations. What gives you the right to leave samsara? Like, basically, who do you think you are? Right? Where do you get all the energy from to think you're going to leave samsara? So Buddha gently placed his right hand over the right knee and touched the earth. Right. So they say the earth goddess came up. So like a living being, and then she, earth goddess, she said, I have witnessed all his lives, which is quite a lot. I mean, she must have a really long life, right? I witnessed all his virtue. I've been witnessing all the acts of virtue. It's been all his part, like the Jataka tells you here about. I've seen him do this. That's why it gives him the merit, the power to sit under this tree, and that's the power to lead into his last meditation. Then the Maras had nothing to do because he'd created the substantial causes for finishing his path, right? That was it. The merit was there. All the merit is accumulated, and it was the last final meditation absorption with the wisdom realizing selflessness. And with that merit and bodhicitta, he cut through the last levels of ignorance, right? What we called last time, we called the subtle obscurations to omniscience. So we cut through that. But anyway, of course, in our tradition, it's all a show because he'd already done that before. We had to show again, this is the way it's done, because as an example for us. So then, that was it. So that was a merit side, all that virtue accumulated, right? All those past lives. And that's what we have to do. If you want the same results, we have to start slowly accumulating merit. Right? So then he could see from past lives, he could see others' lives. He could say, this being in this life now because of this, and then this being. So it's like he could see, if you were in front of him, he could see exactly straight through you, like to all your past life. That's why they're quite incredible beings. See, they can see, okay, Charmaine needs to do this and this and this, and not that kind of activity. Barbara needs to do this, and Heather needs to do this. Because each one, we have different minds, we have different capacities, different strengths as well. So the Buddha's mind, with that clairvoyance, knows exactly where we are, what we've done in our past lives, what we need to do to purify, to accumulate merit. Each one has a different kind of aptitude. So that's the power of a Buddha's mind has, so we have that clairvoyance. So we go for refuge into that. So he could see with this clairvoyance how karma works, why Charmaine was born this life in America, and why she's now living in Santa Fe, why she's doing this, why she's doing that. Yeah, everything has a cause. And if we, even from the color of our eyes, the color of the skin, why this being took this particular rebirth. So that's amazing. That's really amazing. So with that, you could see if somebody does this kind of action, this is a kind of result that's going to happen. This kind of action, this result. So when that faith, that confidence comes, like, of course, for us, it's not, it's not like unshakable, because we haven't got the insight into it. But it becomes like, I think that thing he gave is true about karma. So that goes from a doubting mind to doubting towards a correct assumption. It's like, yes, that's probably how it is. And so with that faith, we start to engage in practices, which means we actually start to watch our minds, see how it's going to one of the 10 non-virtues or any kind of harmful action, and catch it. Yeah. So the Dharma practice is this, to try and catch that mind going into negativities. Right? To really watch, why am I doing this action? So then it comes back to watching the disturbing emotions. So normally, like when we looked at the wheel of life, in the middle is the rooster, and then the snake. The rooster is kind of attachment, the snake is the anger, and they're both coming from this pig, which represents this kind of ignorance of not knowing how the self exists. So then it comes back to right to the root of a misapprehension of the self, me. And with the idea of me, there's mine. So mine, one of the root afflictions to all our disturbing um, emotions, is the view of what we call the afflicted view. So in this tradition, we put that as the first of the 12 links. It's the first one. It's not normally ignorant. Normally it's called ignorance. For us, that ignorance is this afflicted view, which is seeing the self and then grasping at it in a wrong way. And because of that, there is an idea of something of mine. It's mine to this kind of wrongly held me self. Due to that, all the other afflictions come. Yeah? Like I want this, I don't want that. Yeah, I don't want that. So then this goes on to little things like, you know, when somebody gives us something unpleasant to hear, some words, and we don't like it. Yeah, somebody criticizes us or says something about us or gives some feedback. So why don't we like it? Because there's an attachment to a self me who doesn't want that, who wants to be praised. Actually, if we want to be praised, we want to have good words, we want to have kind words. So somebody gives us something difficult, it hits home, right? So that's then we see the more we're running around looking for this praise or nice words or even nice sounds, and the less we get of it, the more we get disappointed and upset, and then irritation, frustration, anger, right? And also, so it goes with other things, sights, smells, taste, all our sense organs. So more we're into um, beautiful smells, pleasant taste, beautiful forms, and wanting to be near them, have them all the time. And less we have of them, we get the opposite of them, the more upset we get. So then it's going towards what we call the kind of the eight worldly dharmas. It's like we're going more our refuge into those, a refuge into our attachments, and staying away from our aversions. Staying really almost like hating them and getting upset when we have them, when we have things we don't like happening to us. So then we have to be careful. Why is that happening? But why are we so attached to these pleasant tastes, pleasant forms, pleasant smells, and so much aversion to when we don't get them or get something different or opposite to them? Yeah? So the thing is, the karma ripens. Sometimes we can't control it. We can't always be near the pleasant objects that we want. Yeah? The karma happens, and some of the pleasant objects we have to lose as well. Again, due to karma, right? The situation changes. We go up and down. Even in this life, we go up and down. Sometimes we have pleasant conditions, very good, very stable. Suddenly, it's all taken away from us. So the mind has to learn to be stable. Otherwise, we're going to suffer a lot. Even in this life, we'll suffer a lot. So the mind has to have kind of this equanimity. See, okay, I have to experience this. It's part of my karma. It doesn't mean you kind of um, you go around searching for undesirable things all the time. Trying to purify yourself and go to Calcutta and live on the streets. We're not talking about that. It's that when it happens, when things happen, it's undesirable. You have to have the mind that's stable to accept it. Yeah, that brings already a lot of peace. You see, and that comes due to just looking at how attachment, how it exaggerates always the kind of pleasant side of the object, and our aversion always exaggerates the unpleasant sides of the object. And then we trip up. Yeah, we start to believe in the hallucination we just made up ourselves. The mind made it up. The mind, which saw pleasant qualities, and that's okay. Pleasant qualities may exist in the object or situation or place you're living in, etc. But the mind will exaggerate it. So that's why we often say it's like so good, it's so nice, it's so beautiful, because somehow it's inherently there from his side, the object side. And because of that, we want to be near it because it brings some happiness, some pleasure, right? So that kind of thing. So that's not there. And also on the other side, the aversion side is not there. That's so bad, it's so terrible. It's like, then we add an inherent quality to that object as well, the situation or people or place. So the mind has to learn to stop doing that. But that's kind of a big step for us, because it's a little bit going into more the emptiness side. And of course, that's the best protection, but it's a little bit difficult from where we are. So we have to start from a little bit lower steps, We just watch. how attachment works and to kind of reduce detachment. So we introduce a mind of detachment. So detachment isn't always a mind of aversion or repulsiveness. It's just seeing the object a little bit how it is. Yeah, you can say I see it like that, but not everybody has to see it like that, and that's already a big step. Yeah, because sometimes when we say oh, it's so nice, it's almost like saying, well, can't you see it? Can't you see it's been so bad? Can't you also see it? So that's why sometimes we get into conflicts and disputes because we think our view is so concretely pure and true. Somebody says the opposite. It's like, are they blind? What's wrong with them? Of course, because we're different minds, right? We're different karma, different projections, different habits, different imprints. So we see things differently. Right? So then it kind of opens up our mind a little bit to say, okay, it doesn't have to be like that. So again, this detachment thing is not always like trying to push things away and look at the ugliness of everything. For example, there's there's this meditation we do in Buddhism to kind of we detach attachment to ourselves, because we're quite attached to our own bodies most of the time, right? And then we get attached to other people's bodies, right? So to try and reduce it, we try and see kind of reality of our bodies, like it is actually in the nature of disintegrating, basically. We are getting sick, we're getting old, and then we have things coming out of our bodies which are not so clean from all the different orifices. Actually, it's not like we say, well, they're disgusting. It's just like it's just it's just not attractive in nature. Like if you cried a lot, if you had like a tap, you took you took a glass of your tears. It's not something attractive, right? Or your saliva, you took saliva. I mean, even if you've got like an infection, it's not. It's just something not attractive, right? Or earwax or something like that. So, or even say so even your body hair, right? The hair on your head, right? Normally, when you look at somebody's hair, oh, it's so beautiful, and you want to touch it, and right? But of course, when you go to a hairdresser and you see the same hair on the floor, we don't have the same feeling, right? Why? It's not repulsive, is it? It's just like kind of you're detached. It's just the hair on the floor. It's not the same as the hair on the head, right? Well, it doesn't bring the same feeling. Of course, it's the same, but it doesn't bring the same feeling. Or like when you have hair on somebody, your partner's hair is so beautiful, especially if they washed it, and then suddenly you find one of those hairs in your soup, and it's not the same. It's not the same feeling, right? You don't say, "Oh wow, beautiful! Look, I just found your hair." You ever wonder, "Oh, it's like a mind of shock comes first. Why is that?" So it's like it's quite interesting how our mind plays this game. So we kind of detach ourselves from the object or situation that we're grasping as thinking is a source of our pleasure, right? I just see it as it is. Same with the aversion or the object of attachment or anger. I mean, again, you just see it as it is. Just see, okay, not everybody sees it, and you try and find a quality about that. Try and find something beneficial about the situation or the or the object or the person. Then the mind gets a liking for it. The mind rises up. So we can do. So this is kind of uh, Dharma practice. When the Buddha talked about Dharma, it's about protecting our mind. So these are the minds we have to put in, because the other ones, the afflictions. So there's kind of the major ones are like the attachment we talked about. One of it's a mind that exaggerates the object. So here we're talking about contaminated objects, of samsara. And then it's like it can't let go. It holds like glue. It wants to hold on to it. It wants to, because we normally associated that object or situation or person with happiness. Yeah, and then because of that, we think the nearer we possess it, then that's going to be my stable happiness, which is completely out of the world, on not reality. And it gives, of course, a temporary pleasures there, but it's not a stable happiness that we're actually looking for. We grasp onto that as being the happiness, and we get disappointed again and again and again. And then there's the aversion, the anger that comes when you see the unpleasant situation or unpleasant qualities of something, and then we exaggerate it and make it fixed. It's really there from the object side. And then there's a great aversion to it where you can't even hear the name of the person you dislike or the place or whatever. It's like that kind of thing. aversion comes in. Again, you have to protect the mind by putting now a liking for it. If it's the person, seeing the person as they are. They had parents, they have siblings. Maybe because they may have a difficult childhood or some other situation in life. They had some great trauma, so they're now disturbed. So they're disturbed in the mind. They're quite aggressive. But see the whole picture. What brings the aggression in them? And then accept it. Accept that's where they are. See qualities in them. Put loving kindness, and the mind starts to see. Okay, it's not as bad as that. Or it's the same thing with the situation. Same thing with whatever is happening in your life. You to put the good qualities of that. Then there's doubt. Yeah. So doubt here in this kind of context is it's more about the path. Yeah. This is one reason why we can't really progress, because we usually have I'm not sure. He talked about past and future lives, but I haven't seen it myself. And yeah, I know kids can remember, but that's them. We don't know if it's really true or not. So this doubt comes, we can't really put our minds into practice, because, well, does the future life exist? Do I actually go on? This thing about karma, is it more like I don't know, Christianity kind of to scare us so we become good people? Is it something that the Buddha made up for us? So this doubt doesn't work for us, right? So this particular doubt in the Buddhist context as an affliction isn't talking about like a normal doubt we have. Shall I wear red lipstick today or pink? I'm not sure. When I go out, that's not. Of course, it bothers our mind, but it's not the one I'm talking about in this particular context. Is the path there true or not? Is it going to work or not? Did somebody like the Buddha exist or not? Was there somebody like that who existed, or is it something just made up, like a story? So it's very difficult. It's a dharma that we're going to use. It's a possibility for the mind to change. I don't think so, because I've been an angry person my whole life, and there's no way I'm going to change. That's my character. I was born like this. My mother was like this. My father was. Of course, you think, oh, there's no way to change. There's no way to practice dharma, actually. So then the doubt, we can't really progress. So we have to kind of lessen that doubt by studying. What did he teach? What did it mean? What's mind? Where did it come from? What's its cause? So all these things help us understand, okay, past lives, probably. You go to a kind of a doubting consciousness and then correct assumption. Maybe it does exist like that, what he said. Because there's no other way mind to exist. It wasn't produced by matter, the brain or something like that. Because mind is not matter in Buddhism, right? So where did it come from? It was magically created. Buddha didn't create it. God didn't create it. So where did it come from? From its own continuity. That means it had its own continuity before this life. And that means it will also go on from this life to the next life. What determines it? Karma and actions we've done. Right? So in that way, from studying and reflecting and meditating on our own experience, we get more faith and confidence. Then that puts us into practice. Right? And there's so yeah, it's another. Of course, the other one is called the Afflicted View, which you talked about. So ignorance. That's the main one, of course, where all the others come from. So that's the mind of. So as a Lama Zopa Rinpoche quite often quotes, what happens is we are just made up basically of the two constituents, the body and the mind. If you want to divide the mind up further, you can divide into four things of feelings and main minds, compositional factors and discrimination. But let's leave it just as a body and mind. They exist. So even the body is a label made up by our mind to associate with all the parts in our body. Right? Just like the face, right? When I say face, it's a name I gave to this whole thing. Yeah, because there's eye, there's nose, there's mouth, there's ears. Then you go closer, so okay, mouth. Where's the mouth? Oh, there's the upper lip and then the lower lip. Right? And where's the upper lip? Well, there's this corner and that corner is the middle. Right? So each bit you break up, you have to put a new label, right? Because you can't really find something there existing. So here we're looking for something that seems to be existing really from its side, the lip side. Yeah? So that can't be found. Of course, lip generally can be found, here. But if you look for something, looking where is it exactly, it's very difficult to find. Right? So there's the body, there's a label on all the parts. Then there's a label of the mind. Again, mind has many, many moments, has different levels of mind. There's afflictions, there's virtuous minds, like love, compassion, patience, they're virtuous minds. Wisdom is a virtuous mind. So, and those are all mental factors within our mind, the whole generality of mind. So, as another body is a label, mind is a label. Because of those two things, there's an idea of self, a me. But like Rinpoche often says, that's not the problem. Self does exist. I'm sitting here, I'm talking to you, you're sitting there listening. But the thing is, because of our past imprints of many, 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 many beginningless lifetimes of ignorance, the wrong view, holding on to this self wrongly, that imprint automatically comes up. And what appears back is not the self merely labeled. What appears back is a kind of an inherent intrinsic self somewhere, of course, not labeled, solidly there. And another split second after, our mind grabs onto that as being true. So it's a hallucination. The mind made it up. Now the mind grabs it as true. That's the afflicted view. Yeah, that's the main cause of our troubles, but very hard to break because we've had it for so many lifetimes, and it's like it's innate. It's like it's instinctively there, but that doesn't mean just because it is innate, it does not mean it cannot be got rid of. Why? Just like anger has its opposing factor, just as attachment has its also opposing factor, that afflicted view has its own opposing factor, right? And that's that intelligence, that wisdom that cuts through the misapprehension. Yeah. So at first, it's a little bit difficult because we're not used to that concept, and some people won't even have a version for it because it's so strongly linked with this me. When they hear it, they get scared because they think, well, if that doesn't exist, nothing exists. Then what's there? Where's me, right? We're just going to the other end of the spectrum, right? So we're going to the point where there is no intrinsic me here, independent of the body and mind, but there is, you come back to the first label, the self, right? That's how we actually function normally. You see, because of misapprehension, that innate view is kind of almost constantly there. So then we react, we hear words we don't like, we see things we don't like, someone's opinions we don't like, and we react because it's me starts to come out, this ego comes out very strongly, right? And that ego has its own mental factor, wisdom that can cut through. So we try to, normally in this tradition, we try to break through it first by analyzing. Yes, it's difficult to have a non-conceptual idea of that self, just by sitting and watching. It's quite difficult, so you have to kind of check. So how do we normally check? We check by actually bringing that view of self up quite strongly. So actually in the meditation sessions, we actually sit and bring up a thought, a situation where it came up very strongly. So sometimes it's a moment of fear, sometimes a moment when somebody criticized you or hurt you. When that comes up, you hold it for a while, with a stable mind. Then you analyze if this self exists in that way, where is it? Because like everything else in the normal, ordinary world, if something exists, it has to be found, right? So then we check with the mind where it can be. It has to be either in the body or the mind or outside the body and mind. There's only two ways it can exist. So we check. So with that, you do with the wisdom of like a scalpel, like a knife. You try and cut through the body and check where is it in the physical body if this self exists. So you check from head to toe. Then you check with the mind. Where is it in the mind? From all the virtuous mental factors, all the non-virtuous mental factors, where could it be? Because first of all, you have to establish that the thing you're looking for, this me, is one unit. That when you say me, you don't feel like 15 different people, right? You think of one person. So that one person, one being, that one self, how can it be in all the parts? Because the parts are many. How can it be in the mind, which has many, many parts? It has a continuity of mind, and the mind itself has different mental factors, right? Which one are you? Are you anger? Are you love? Are you compassion? Are you patience? See, if you were one of them, that means you would be that all the time. And if Heather was anger, then that's it. Heather is only anger. There's nothing else because there's only one thing she can be. So in that way, kind of you conclude there is no such thing as this self existing here in the body and mind. And neither is it outside the body and mind, because then we'll be completely unrelated, right? The eye will be somewhere floating above the head, and the body and mind will be here. So you do that first by a conceptual thinking mind. And you could do it in the car, in the train. Maybe not while you're driving might be difficult and dangerous, but you do just around. You don't have to keep sitting in this position to keep. It helps, but don't have to. And when it becomes more stable, you focus on that absence of that kind of self that you thought existed. That is what we're talking about when we talk about emptiness, emptiness of the self. This is crucial because that is actually when, if when we have it directly for the first time. So directly means you see it now non-conceptually. You're not using reasons anymore. You're actually seeing there is definitely no self that you thought existed that way. That's when we reach the path of seeing, right? We actually see for the first time directly there is no self that we thought existed that way. And that is what we call the first true cessation. You know, the emptiness of seeing directly, that becomes a real protection. So somebody who has that for the first time, and you will never lose it, of course, because you can never come back from that kind of realization. The person who has that is what we call the ultimate Sangha. Yeah, they're the real Sangha. They're not like Mickey Mouse monks like me. The real Sangha are ones who've seen that for the first time. Then they're real objects of refuge, because from that moment on, they're cutting really deeply all the other afflictions, because that's where they came from. You know, they came from that view, the afflicted view of me, and now that's being, of course. So that afflicted view has many levels, right? It wasn't like just one solid mind, right? That has many, many levels, like a huge tree. So the roots are being cut now, right? So as the roots have been cut through more and more meditation, all the different levels of that afflictive view are being cut, and that's the main job, right? So if you want liberation, so if you look at the middle scope, looking for our own individual liberation, we just focus on that, on that emptiness of self. We focus on it through concentration, so what we call shine, the mind of calm abiding. Because quite often, if you try and analyze like this, you have you see like a little bit absence of the self. The self starts to dissolve a little bit. Then we panic because it's so frightening for us, and we can't keep it because our concentration is very weak, right? When the concentration is stable, when we have really shine, then you can stay on it longer and longer and longer and longer. And the longer you stay on it, so with the concentration and the emptiness, you start to cut all these roots. Yeah. And to get concentration, what do we need? We need good, perfect ethics. And that starts with giving up the 10 non-virtuous actions, right? Then, of course, we go on further to take some vows, like the 5 lay vows, and you can take monks and nuns' vows. So those levels of vows and ethics leads to good, perfect concentration. And then that, using that as a tool with this analysis of how the self doesn't exist, we cut through all the layers of our afflicted views. And that leads to liberation. So in terms of the middle scope, that was a Dharma the Buddha gave. If somebody wants their own individual peace, liberation, to leave samsara, what we call the lower nirvana, that's what they need. So in the Mahayana vehicle, the Dharma, of course we need that. We need ethics. We need perfect concentration, shine. We need that wisdom. It's the same wisdom we also use. But now, if you remember from last time, we gave these 2 different obstacles. It was obstacles to liberation, obstacles to omniscience. So the obstacles to omniscience is, if you remember, the imprints of those afflictions. Yeah, they're going to stay. Yeah? So to strengthen that wisdom, what we now rely on is the compassion aspect, the bodhicitta, because we want to benefit all sentient beings. We see all beings suffering in the same way. We can't bear to kind of leave them behind and go into our own individual nirvana. So we need to concentrate on bodhicitta. Bodhicitta becomes a life, kind of a life tree of the Mahayana path, right? So that gives that merit, that additional merit, energy into that wisdom, because the wisdom realizing that selflessness is exactly the same as the individual liberation practitioner needs. But this one goes straight into accumulating all that merit. So then there's the six perfections, 4 ways of gathering disciples. So that becomes part of the Mahayana Dharma. Right? So from the very beginning, as we take refuge, you see, I take refuge until I'm enlightened to Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. From the virtuous merit I create by practicing giving and the other perfections, etc., the six perfections. By that merit, may it become kind of the power for the wisdom realizing selflessness to be strong, to get rid of all the subtle obscurations to omniscience. Yeah? So that's our main kind of our practice, our Dharma practice. So of course we have to start from where we are. So we start from giving not harm, abandoning non-virtues, seeing how they're brought about. What's the main ones for us, which are difficult to abstain from, and then we put more energy into that, more of our effort, our joy into focusing on those ones that are hard to give up. And then we should check, why is it hard to give up? Why is our attachment or something to I don't know, to receiving praise or honor or gifts or why is that so strong when everything we have to leave behind anyway? Yeah. So you slowly reduce all our attachments, our aversions. We try and see what antidotes are best when the afflictions come up. We watch, we're conscientious, we have to be very kind of vigilant. And as those afflictions come up, we try and grab them. Yeah, we don't let them just float by. Of course, there are techniques. There are techniques where when the affliction comes, you just watch the affliction as it is. Yeah? Like just another mind. You don't give any energy into it. You watch it. So at least for some it works. You see it's impermanent. You see it. It becomes stronger sometimes. You watch it and it goes, but it's like a cloud comes up, becomes a huge storm. You don't put any energy into it, any extra thoughts into it, and it will go by. Sometimes it's good to actually put the antidote immediately as soon as you see it coming up. You try and put the antidote. Yeah. So this is especially true for aversion. Yeah, because the anger, by the time anger actually comes up full blown, it's very hard to put any antidote at all. So then all you have to do is watch it, basically. Of course, you don't act on it. You try not to act on it. You just watch it coming up because it completely overtakes your mind. Your whole, the whole body starts to vibrate with the energy. But like Shantideva often says, you just watch like a piece of wood. You can remain still. You don't say anything. You don't do anything. Sometimes you move away from the condition or the object that brought it up, because sometimes that's what triggers the anger. If you can, you stay away from the object. Then you cool down. Then you figure out what happened. What happened in that situation that brought up this? Yeah. And you try and analyze. Then try and put a specific antidote. So normally it's being able to bear up. Patience is a mind that can bear up difficulties. And there's a mind of loving kindness. So if it's a person, it's kind of towards loving kindness. Find the qualities of the person, find the big picture, what happened, what did they say, what words they used, what hit home to you, what triggered you, why was it so painful for you, where did it come from the other person. You try and look at it like that. If it's a situation or a place, you have to bear up. But with the situation now with the COVID, not much we can do, right? We just have to bear it up. This is just the situation. Is our karmic, our collective karma right now is to go through this. So you just bear it up, go through it, accept it as it is. So some of course some situations you can do something about it. Again, you Shantideva's verse. When there is a situation that's difficult, if something can be done to resolve it, you do it. No use worrying about it sitting there. If nothing can be done, then you have to go through it. Then again, don't worry. Just that's the way it is. So this is kind of our main beginnings of our main protection, of Dharma protection. And who gave this? The amazing being, the Buddha, whose words are still kind of alive through our teachers now. So we use that, first in terms of Dharma, there's the words that were given by the Buddha, and then there were scriptures written many hundreds of years after he passed away. The scriptures were written, and those are what we call the scriptural Dharma teachings. Of course, we put them very high up because it's interesting. Why do we put them high up, especially in this tradition? I'm not sure other traditions, but why do we put them high up? Because if you read them, understand them, and then that changes your mind, that brings a protection. So by that way, they get quite valuable for us, right? So with that idea of respect, we put them quite high up. And often, if you see in the temples, even in our gompas, like in Nalanda here, the scriptures are always higher, the highest, above the Buddha statues. Again, for the same reasons, you see, the Buddha statue is very great to inspire us, to reflect this being appear to us, the best example, but he will never speak to us, right? It's a Dharma that really speaks to us if we understand it. If you take the scriptures down, go through them, figure out what they mean, ask somebody who has higher knowledge than you and understand, and that becomes something in your mind. That's the protection, right? Then we put it up high. So often you see them quite high up, but quite often I don't see it in all traditions. So I had to be careful what I say when I sometimes see other traditions doing. They put it on the floor, and they're walking over the scriptures because they don't have that same kind of view that maybe in the Mahayana tradition we put into this. So we just have to be patient, I guess, and be an example by taking up from the floor, putting up higher, like that. Yeah, so that's the Dharma scriptural teaching. But the real protection is not just from the teachings up there; it's how we integrate it into our mind. That's our real protection. That's what we should be doing, actually. And that's the best thing that pleases all the Buddhas. The Buddhas came, why? To help us get out of samsara. Of course, everyone has different levels of what they want in samsara. Some people in the lowest level will want only future rebirths because they think that's happiness. Of course, they know the Buddha state exists. They know self-liberation exists, and they think, well, that's great, but I'm not there. I can't aim for that. It's too high. So they just go for that, ultimately just for a future good rebirth, in terms of human rebirth or God rebirth, knowing fully well that they will last and they will pass away from those lives, but they can't somehow motivate themselves to think higher. Right? It's almost like, well, it's just too far. It's like doing an MA. Yeah, I've done my high school, done my BA, but MA, oh, it's too difficult. It's much too far. It's not, no, they just can't think like that. Like it's like some people going for their medical degrees. Like 7 years, 8 years for someone who's being a vet. It's like in France, it's something like 8 years of studies before you actually come out to be an actual vet practicing. It's a huge amount of years of study, right? So it's like it's just too far away for them. So same with somebody who knows about the state of Buddhahood. They know sometimes there is these obstacles to omniscience, but they think, well, it just takes so many lives to have all that merit, to accumulate all that merit, for them to strengthen their wisdom. When I could just leave samsara myself, individual liberation is great. I'm getting out. At least I'm not harming anybody else. And that's where they are. And we just have to say that's their goal, and that's it. So we leave them at that. That's perfectly okay goal, right? And then the Buddha taught the Mahayana vehicle. Okay, so then think of the compassion so strong. It's the Buddha himself. Why did he? Okay, for us in the Mahayana tradition, of course, Mahayana view is that he was already enlightened. He manifested all these activities, but think at one time he was just an ordinary human being like us. Yeah. So in the Pali tradition, it's like that. He was just an ordinary human being. Okay. He had so much compassion. He could see the suffering of himself. And then quite often we neglect our own suffering before we say, oh, compassion is so beautiful. I want to meditate on that. It's so nice. But actually, you can't have strong compassion unless you meditate on your own suffering. Next, you have to go through all the 6 types of suffering in the human realms, the 8 types of suffering. Then look at the all-pervasive suffering. Just having to take rebirth into contaminated aggregates again and again and again, life after life. Like, got quite often, like I've heard some of Rene's teachings, just take your mind back, take your mind back into a past life, go to in-between state, past life. Where were you? Imagine where you were, with your family and kids and job and everything. Go through your youth, go to the womb of that last life, go back to another life, go back to another life. And millions of lives, So you go like this, oh my gosh, you kind of get fed up, I don't want to come back anymore. Okay, even if they're good, I don't want to come back, because even the good ones, no matter how many millions of years they last, they all finish. They all finish. That kind of dissatisfied, maybe disgruntled mind. They're like, oh, I don't want that anymore. I'm just fed up. So with that, you get a little taste of renunciation comes, because we look at real. Well, we call it renunciation, but it's not the correct word. Actually, it's a mind of wishing to definitely emerge from samsara. That's what it is. I don't want this anymore. And then, see, the Buddha did that, in one of his lives as an ordinary being. But then he looked around. He said, everybody's in the same position. My mothers, my past lives, my fathers and past lives, all my family members, all the friends, every being is going through this and will have to go through this. So then, the compassion became a great compassion. So what's the difference? Great compassion is a mind that says, I'm going to do something about this. Compassion is just a wish saying, how wonderful if they were free from every type of difficulty in their life. But here is I want to free them actually. Because it's the beginnings of taking responsibilities there, right? So with that, he looked for a method. What's a method to free all these beings in the best way? Of course, you can become a great vet. You can become a good surgeon, whatever, a fantastic lawyer to help all the beings in trouble, free all the beings from prison, a great medical practitioner, free all the beings from sicknesses. But that's only this life, you see. So he said, I must free them from all lives, or ever taking rebirth again. So he could see what brings us into rebirths is this afflicted view, the misapprehension of how we actually exist. Yeah, the self, how the self exists. We grasp it as a kind of this illusory idea of me that exists. He could see that was a main culprit. Then what did he do? He put much effort, life after life, with great compassion. He went into this meditation again, strengthening that meditation, strengthening again, until he was able to break through. Yeah, then break through all the different levels of conceptions, wrong conceptions, all the wrong views, then a completely purified, realized mind. And with it, came all the limitless compassion, limitless love, etc. Patience, so Sangye, when you see in Buddha, Sangye, in Tibetan, Sangye. So Sang is like completely purified, and Gye is like a vast mind, gathered all virtuous qualities that way, Sangye, right? Then he taught us what he'd realized. And he could see with compassion that the beings in front of him had different attitudes. Not everybody wants to go to this highest goal of enlightenment because they couldn't think about it. Some people want their own individual liberation, so he taught them that. Some people just wanted their own happiness in future lives, so he taught them methods for that. Yeah, avoiding 10 non-virtues. For those who want self-liberation, okay, from avoiding 10 non-virtues, abide in perfect ethics. Yeah, from ethics, go on to generate a mind of concentration, stay calm, have a stable mind of Shine. With that, learn about how the self doesn't exist the way you think it exists, and then cut through that misapprehension. We get the self-liberation. For those who want the fully enlightened state, you have to go further. Yeah, you not only have to now have the perfect ethics, concentration, wisdom, you have to back it up with bodhicitta, this great compassion. Is remember, great compassion is the beginning of the Mahayana path. I mean, not path, but to a wish. Yeah. So that can be way before you've actually, realized emptiness or anything. You just have that which I want to help all beings. Then you find a way. What's the best way? How can I do it? To help beings the best way, I need to have the enlightened mind, a purified, realized mind. Where does that come from? From looking at emptiness properly, of backing it up with bodhicitta. Yeah? So that with that, he became what we call a protector of the world. And that's why we know that's kind of, that's why we can also do the same thing. You see, because we have a mind just like he did. Yeah, his mind was clear and knowing. Our mind is clear and knowing. Clear meaning the mind is just whatever you put in front of the mind, it takes the aspect. Also, the other aspect of clear is that it's not matter. It's clear. Knowing is really, it can perceive objects, perceive things, not just objects, but also mental objects. So here we're going into, of course, great compassion is what? It's a mind. So these minds, can be strengthened more and more and more. You see, the wrong conceptions like the afflicted view of the self, anger, attachment, they are strong, right? They can get strong, but you can't have like limitless attachment of every object that exists. That's not possible, right? Or limitless anger, like anger at every single being. It's a bit difficult. You can have people have anger to a lot of people, a lot of people. Like I know, like Mao Zedong or Hitler and Pol Pot. They had anger at a lot of specific groups of people, right? But not every single being, right? That's like limitless anger. So that you can't have. But other side, you can have limitless compassion, limitless love. That's possible. And we do that by strengthening the mind, by making it a habit. You see, like already we have, I mean, a lot of us, we have this kind of compassion or love to our friends, family, relatives, some relatives. Then we include other people, a few strangers, like people in the shops, people in the streets. Then, then maybe some difficult people in our lives, not all. Why is that? Because we haven't strengthened that mind. Yeah, it hasn't become so familiar. If we did it with each being, that's what we would be. That's what the Buddha had. Yeah, he did it. He strengthened his mind again, more and more until it became stable, and you can't lose it. Yeah, this is what's so powerful. You can't. He will never come back from that. That's one of the, one reason we see the Buddha as a refuge, because he will never come back from that. He won't say, well, Heather didn't smile at me today, so I'm not going to teach her. He wouldn't do that, So that kind of mind is, so this mind is always there, no matter if you harm him, you criticize him, he's always there to give. If whether we receive it, if we're ready to receive it, that's another question, right? Because even when the Buddha came, everybody heard his words. Everybody in India who had the karma could hear his words, but not everybody took it as truth or took it as something to use. Some people saw it as he was lying or flattering others. This kind of thing was going on. So it depends on our karma. It's like the sun. You see, the sun comes up, warms everything that it comes into touch with. But if you're sitting in the shade, tough luck. You're in the wrong place. you got to move, right? So unfortunately, some beings are like that. So it's huge kind of karmic obstacles become. But even though the Buddhas are trying to help us or trying to teach, we're not receiving it. We're not ready to receive it because of past karmic imprints that we had maybe rejected the Dharma or denigrated the Dharma, destroyed the Dharma like the scriptural teachings. So that becomes huge obstacles for us in future lives. Right? So that's why these three, what we call the three rare sublime ones, the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, are incredibly rare to meet. When we meet them, we got to just profit as much as we can, because otherwise it's such a waste, So yeah, there's a scriptural Dharma, then the realizational Dharma. So the realizational Dharma is, how we protect our minds, from all these afflictions, disturbing emotions, by putting the antidote. So we have to learn what those antidotes are. It's not like, for some people, it comes maybe reasonably easy. We'd say because of past imprints, that's why they know it already in a way. But some, they have to learn about it. What exactly is this antidote? How do we put it in? So we have to put, like this compassion we're talking about, this compassion, we have to see it's a mind. First, it's a mind, it's a conceptual mind, actually. But of course, for some, For some beings, it comes automatically. It's just a feeling, but for some, it's not. For some people, it's not. Like to some people, it's not. So we need to start again conceptually. I have compassion for my cat and my dog and my mother because I love them. I care for them. They're close to me. They give me something back. That use these reasons, and they're kind of they're in pain or they're suffering, and the wish for them to be free is there. Then you say, well, why can't I have that for somebody else? They're also a being. They also have a mind. They also have difficulties in their life. But somehow, because we don't feel connected, you see, so you need to bring them close. That's why there was this technique of seeing all beings as your mother, as well as not seeing all beings as the mother of this life. Don't mistake that, because sometimes it does help, like to see every being with your mother's face. If you have a good connection with your mother, it might help. But to see all beings as having been your mother, like the mother of this life, then you have this, oh my gosh. So at the moment you feel so disconnected, but then that thought, again, it's the conceptual mind, right? The thinking mind. It brings a feeling of closeness. You do it more and more and more and more. It becomes habitual. Then no matter what being you see, hear, touch, was once your mother. Automatically the mind was there. Then its closeness comes. Just like you have the closeness with the mother of this life, you see. That kind of bonding is there. So that's done by training, you see. That's training the mind. So it's unlike unlike the physical forms of training. For example, the athletes, they train for the Olympics. They do these long jumps or high jumps or long jumps. They do the sprint. They have to get on their blocks and they run and they jump. And now I'm not sure how long they can jump. Maybe they can jump 5 meters, maybe 5 meters. It's quite long. But like maybe in the 1950s or 1940s, they probably couldn't do that jump. Probably doing 4 meters at most. But now, because we're all onto steroids and food's better, I don't know. So maybe the strengthening of the body is more fine and the training is finer, finesse. So they got this technique, how they run, how they approach, and then, wow, they leap and 5 meters. Wow, fantastic. But what's the limit? Can it be like one day 10 meters? Difficult to imagine, unless you're a superhuman being. The human body is limited in that way, physical way. Even in terms of lifting weight, like Lama often he imitates these, people with these huge necks and kind of biceps bigger than their waist or whatever, just kind of looks kind of out of proportion in a way. But even that's limited, right? How much can you build your body up in that way? So the mind is not limited in that way. See, it can be, when it's trained, it can be limitless. It's completely different from the body. See, that's what the Buddha did. He trained his mind in unlimited compassion and unlimited wisdom. So with that, he went into the fully enlightened state, right? And with that, he became a protector for all beings, because he fully realized everything that had to be got rid of, and he knew all the methods to get rid of those, what we call those obscurations, all the afflictions. So look at the second noble truth. The second noble truth is karma and afflictions. So that brings, true suffering, the first noble truth. If we don't want that, we have to get rid of every single, type of suffering, type of affliction, and its imprints. So those imprints we're talking about, these subtle obscurations of omniscience, and that's possible due to our minds having the capacity to improve itself. It's just a matter of if we want to do it or not. That comes then going back to, did this person got the Buddha exist? Yeah, probably. Why? Because the mind can be improved, and this person did it. He did it by training his mind through what we call meditation. What were the things he trained in? Great compassion and wisdom, realizing selflessness. With those two, after many lifetimes, which is again same case for us. Don't think it's going to happen overnight, all this life. Of course, we don't know. Some people may have the merit to end their samsara this life, but it could take many lives. So there's kind of this hope and this joy comes that we can do it. So now we bring karma into our hands, right? Instead of being controlled by it, we try to control it. We say, right now, knowing how karma works, because karma works by saying virtue only leads to happiness. Whatever karma has done is increasing. Yeah, what's not done cannot be experienced, and what's done will never be eradicated. So of course, you have to add the commentary to it, because, for example, a virtue that's done can be destroyed by what? Anger and wrong views. Right? Non-virtue done has to be experienced as unhappiness, but can be purified, so it doesn't have to be experienced. So all these things have to go in the mix as well. But generally speaking, because virtue leads to happiness, when you create virtue, compassion leads to virtue. Meditating emptiness creates virtue. With that, it's increasing all the time. Yeah? And that will definitely lead to a result. It won't be lost because you did it like a few hundred years, lifetimes ago. It will never be lost. It will bring its result. So now we take into our hands this life. I'm going to avoid all non-virtues as much as possible and create only virtue. Yeah. So like Rinpoche says often, you do it with bodhicitta. Everything is bodhicitta. Everything also with the view of selflessness. That's why often he's dedicating at the end. The I doesn't exist inherently, the virtue created doesn't exist inherently, too, enlightenment, which doesn't exist inherently, because none of these things are kind of findable under ultimate analysis. They all exist conventionally, but under ultimate analysis cannot be found. But they function as karma functions. So we use it for our own benefit and benefit of others. Yeah. So then even the normal actions we do in our daily lives, we do with bodhicitta, becomes virtue. You see, like when you, especially those who've taken refuge, you see, one of the practices of eating is to offer the first portion of food to the Buddha. Right? Why on earth do we do that? Of course, for us, again, in mind of Buddhas exist, so we visualize them in front of us. Of course, they don't need food and drink anymore, but we think, where did this resource, food is resource, where did it come from? That I was able to, buy my own food, cook my own food, have food here. It came because of generosity in past lives. Generosity in past lives came through having teachings about generosity, came from somebody guiding us into the benefits of generosity. So then, who could that be? People like the Buddhas. We met the Buddhas before, we practiced before. So now, again, we have the chance to practice. So now we give back. We create new merit by offering to the Buddhas. So now it's not. It's instead of just being small kind of virtue of generosity, we do it bodhicitta. By the act of generosity, may I complete the action of merits. May that lead to enlightenment for myself, for all sentient beings. Or you can give completely selflessly by this act of merit of giving to the Buddhas. Again, so the virtue becomes very powerful. Why? Because the object that you're giving to the highly enlightened mind, the merit becomes greater. That merit you dedicate to all sentient beings, for wherever they are, whatever suffering they're going through, may become resources that they need for their path, better conditions for them to practice everything they need. So you just give selflessly. So that's where even eating, even sleeping, taking a rest, you can do with bodhicitta. I'm resting my body and mind to recuperate, so when I get up, I can continue to practice in the six perfections, generosity, ethics, etc. So with that, everything you do in your daily life becomes a cause for enlightenment, right? So we protect our minds. So actually, in the end, of course, by doing it, because we're thinking of others constantly how to bring others to happiness, the happiness for ourselves comes automatically, just like as a side effect. So we don't have to worry about our own happiness. But constantly we have to go, if I give everything away, what about me? Forget it. Just give the merits away. Give it away, and you automatically have your own needs met. Yeah, so that's a little bit of the Dharma Refuge in terms of the small scope, the middle scope, and the great scope. So as we, in the FPMT, we are focusing really on this. What's our real protection in terms of Dharma is bodhicitta and emptiness, right? So then some of them, they're very high level states of mind, but we have a little taste of it, inkling of it, and then we try to do something going up to those minds, so non-harm, thinking of the benefits of loving kindness, of how beings are suffering, the compassion comes, thinking how all beings are suffering like me, wish to really help them comes, and the wish that the responsibility is coming a little bit stronger, and that just through habit becomes stronger and stronger and stronger. Same with the idea of selflessness. Yeah? That also comes about a little bit. The grasping mind of me somewhere here. So here we have to be a little bit careful with the terms we use: self-centered mind and self-grasping mind, because they're a little bit different. Yeah? The self-centered mind is what we call the selfish mind, and this is the obstacle for generating compassion and bodhicitta. Because bodhicitta is mind thinking of others, constantly thinking of others, and the selfish mind thinking of me. The self-grasping mind is more about the, like we had before, the afflicted view, how the mind looks at the self that normally kind of exists as a mere label, as a me, Gendun. And somehow, because of past imprints of afflicted ignorance, he grasps it wrongly and projects it into a hallucinated Gendun, existing as monk all the time, or existing as whatever, human all the time. This kind of me, strong me here. So those two minds are different. That selfish mind and that self-grasping mind are kind of two different minds. Yeah, but for us in an ordinary state, they look like the same because they're so mixed up. Right? So the difference comes, for example, when you look at the person who's going towards self-liberation. Right? So they're going for their own peace, their own nirvana. So imagine they have great ethics, concentration. Then they look into selflessness, the afflictive view, grasping onto the self, and they cut through their meditation absorption. They got through all the levels of this afflictive view. It's gone. They are at that stage, if they were human at that stage, that level, we call them an arahant. We give them a label, arahant, which means they're completely liberated from all their afflictions. So when they die, they will actually pass into their own individual nirvana, their peace. But what's stopping them, right, from going into the Mahayana vehicle? Yeah, to try to get rid of those, what we call the subtle obscurations of omniscience, is their selfish mind. So now they don't have the self-grasping mind because it's gone, but they still have a view of my happiness. My happiness is more important than others. So they, with that, they're kind of scared, or blocks them from generating this aspiration for the Mahayana path. Yeah. So it depends on that individual, right? In that very life, as they become arahant, if they meet a Mahayana teacher who inspires them and triggers them to say, look, it's great what you've done, but there's another kind of higher goal, which means getting rid of the subtle obscurations of omniscience. To do that, you need to generate great compassion, bodhicitta. Then they might, in their life, start to now practice the great compassion, take on the responsibility by suddenly saying, yes, all beings are suffering, and I can do something about it. Having achieved arahantship, because they see the mind of is very strong mind. The wisdom realizing emptiness is perfect, but it hasn't got that strength behind it to get rid of the subtle obscurations. So they might, in that life, engage in the minor path. Yeah, but you see, what's stopping them is that kind of a self-centered mind, me, my happiness. And of course, they're teaching others the path to liberation, etc. But to go the whole effort more, it will take them longer, see, more lives, you see. So they're probably not interested in doing it. Yeah, so, okay, it's a little bit, that's the Pali, kind of Pali tradition looks on it like that, and the bodhicitta vehicle, the Mahayana vehicle looks on it like this. Then we have to check, where are we in our Dharma practice, what are we doing to protect our minds, to come back to our level. Those are kind of high level minds. Well, what are we doing? So do we have loving kindness? Do we have even just compassion? Because even that's an amazing mind. So we're not talking about great compassion, we're taking on the responsibility. We're talking about, do I have that compassion for all sentient beings? Our mind says, even the difficult people in your lives right now, even the people who just the name of the person irritates you. Do you have that mind? I want that person to be happy, free from suffering. I have to check. So then, yeah. So then we to start from there, you know. That becomes our kind of, you know, when you do the refuge prayer, we do the four measurables. So that we can focus on in our daily practice quite a lot, you know, to focus on that. I mean, from the beginning, really, from how wonderful all beings were happy, you know, how wonderful all beings were free of any kind of suffering, mental or physical. How wonderful all beings could abide in equanimity. Seeing first how wonderful it is when you're in equanimity, when you don't have this kind of mind of going up and down, you know, getting pulled into when somebody gives you something, some nice words or some praise or some gifts. Oh, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. That person's just great, you know. And then the next day, they don't say hello. They ignore you or something, and the mind goes down, 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 down. You know. So you know, my mind is keep the mind at peace, equal. You know. And also how wonderful how boy if beings could, you know, had what they want, you know, what they were looking for in terms of relationship, job, salary, you know, happiness, and how wonderful if them come back from that. Also happy rebirths and never come back from happy rebirths. So this mind of joy, through rejoicing, that's also a very strong mind. Yet those minds protect us from jealousy. You see, that comes up quite strongly. So jealousy is one of the secondary mental factors, you know. So you see, anger, what we call the root afflictions. There's anger, the afflicted view. There's attachment, desire attachment. Then there's pride. There's doubt. So remember, doubt we talked about. Pride also is kind of coming due to attachment. This inflated, exaggerated view of ourselves. So again, we mustn't mix that up with self-confidence. You know, when we know something, we're good at something, that's okay. We're kind of confident about it, we're okay with it. But it's just when it becomes blown up, exaggerated, that becomes a pride, that becomes an affliction. Then we start to look down on others, you know, denigrate. That's the worst. Yeah, and then we have a kind of a spectrum of mental afflictions that come up, like jealousy, spite, wrath, laziness, dullness. So you see, we have to protect our minds from that, because also those minds will disturb us, even in our practice, you know, even in our secular life, they disturb us. So we have to put different antidotes to them. You know, through jealousy, through the mind of rejoicing, how wonderful that person achieved what they wanted to achieve, or had something that you wished you would have, but how wonderful they had it, because they had the karma. Imagine through karma they created from past lives, merit, they receive this. Fantastic, you know. That. Okay, so maybe if some people have some questions, I can take a few questions. Somebody has. Charmaine. Where was that picture, Charmaine? Was it in Laudo?
Yeah, no, it was in Farping.
Oh, yeah, probably.
The self-arising Torah.
Yeah.
I didn't want you seeing me drinking my tea because I'm so tired this morning.
That's all right. Don't worry. Don't worry.
I apologize.
I'm drinking mine, so you can drink yours.
Venerable Gendun, we did talk last time, and I hope this doesn't, if this is boring for anybody, then I can complete this conversation with him over email. So don't be shy and tell me to move on. But we had talked last time about whether we wanted to make prayers to be reborn in a pure land.
Yes.
Or we wanted, I mean, this is also a matter of refuge for me. I was thinking about it this week because, you know, part of the fear when you take refuge is fear of being reborn in the lower realms, as you were teaching about. And so, but then, you know, when you read Rinpoche's book on guru devotion, then if at the time of your death you remember the guru and you pray to the guru, then isn't it nearly impossible to be reborn in the lower realms? Isn't there some kind of safety net there that we can rely on if we're taking true refuge? And
Yes, there is. But actually, yeah, there is. But I think, why would that protect you? Thinking of the guru and stuff. I would think probably because of this strong faith, and of course, but that would mean that'd be so easy. That means that you would have to give up all practice because it doesn't matter what you do. In fact, you just rely on Rinpoche and say, "That's it. Please take me, hook me into." That means all the blessings come from the Guru. You see, so there must be some other factor into it, you know. So of course, maybe the virtue we've created in this life gets activated due to his blessings. Maybe that could be something like that. I'm not exactly sure how it functions.
I mean, what are the components of having true refuge? Like, what are the components of really having faith in the guru to protect, and the guru is a holy object? I mean, that requires some.
Yeah, but I would still come back to, yes, the guru has. I mean, like from the guru's side, there's blessings. Like the Buddha's side, there are some blessings, you know. But from our side, we have to do the work, you know. So then, if you don't create any virtue from abandoning 10 non-virtues, generating minds of love and compassion and patience and ethics, then it will be almost impossible for us to have a good rebirth, you know, because those are the causes for good rebirths. You see, just only relying on the blessings of the guru, I think we're difficult to see how it works like that. You know? So I mean, there is something coming from the object, from the guru side for sure, the Buddha side, but it won't happen unless we do something. So then it's 50, kind of almost 50-50, and a hooks us. You know, that unless we have the merit, it won't happen. So of course it's termed like that, but I'm sure there must be a commentary into the small print. What happens, you know, exactly what happens.
Don't bum me out, Venerable Gendun.
No.
That's my strategy at the time of
No,
death.
go for it. Because it's a strong faith. You see, just thinking, because they said that, you know, one reason why they use the Buddha image for Shine, especially in our tradition, is because of the time of death. That we're so familiar with it, it comes up. And for us, it's not just Buddha like an image. It's Buddha, the real Buddha. So actually, we're thinking of the Buddha, and due to the blessings of that, we actually get pulled up out of a normal lower rebirth. But of course, with so much merit, you know, how can you go to a lower rebirth? It's difficult to imagine, very difficult.
I mean, in the book in the Vajrasattva retreat book that Rinpoche, and he was talking about Amitabha Pure Land, then he's saying that it's always good to remember Amitabha Pure Land and to make prayers throughout your life to be reborn there.
Yeah.
But then, you know, I had another Lama who said, absolutely not, as we discussed last time.
Yes,
You must
yes.
pray to be reborn to benefit sentient beings in
Exactly,
the human
yeah.
realm.
Like, yeah.
And so it's
So,
like I have a fundamental, and it's like, you know, I want to get the target right because I
yeah.
only have time and I could die tonight. And then I don't,
Yeah.
I'm sort of like, I've got one foot in wanting to be reborn as a human to benefit sentient beings. And I've got one foot in wanting to go to Amitabha's Pure Land. I'm afraid I'm creating the karma to have like a split personality.
Because they say, I kind of asked the Gishi, he said, well, yeah, it's because it's a bit like, you know, like the Hinayana practitioner. I mean, of course, some Theravada and some Pali tradition practitioners, they know about enlightenment. Some they don't know actually. They think they think it's so far away. It's like the Pali tradition. They say Shakyamuni Buddha existed, but it's very hard for everybody to become enlightened. They kind of understand everybody's mind has a potential, but I think, but you're very, very rare to have that possibility to accumulate so much merit for life after life. And they say, so they let go. But some, they know it's possible, and they say, no, not for me yet. Thanks. I'm gonna go for I'm gonna go for a little bit of a holiday first. And then when it's time, which is millions of years, the Buddhas can come and wake me up. It doesn't matter. Beings can suffer, but I'm just not there, baby. I've just got to have my rest, you know. That's what they do. It's a bit like that. So because some people just say, well, Pure Land's a kind of a nice rest for a while. It's just so beautiful, and you do create virtue. You practice some Dharma there, right? So it's nice. But in the end, you see, the little bit of story. The story is, you see, in terms of the Tantra path, there are 4 levels of Tantra. Remember, yeah. So actually, it's only the highest yoga Tantra that gets you enlightened. The others are like stepping stones. So it's like,
And
you know,
why does it say in the text that you can get enlightened?
because they have to. That's what the text
Yeah.
says.
You
That's
can't
what the
practice
text.
Hatha Tantra in Amitabha Pure Land. I'm so
That's
confused. So you cannot get
because
enlightened through Kriya Tantra? It
no,
just doesn't take
no,
longer?
it takes long.
Wow, this is
No,
so fascinating. I don't know what's
yeah,
going
yeah, because
on. What
like for example, when the Buddha was alive, he gave the 4 schools of emptiness. I'm not sure if you heard about it. You know, the 4 schools, the Vaibhashika, Sautantrika, the Chittamatra, and the Prasangika. And the Prasangika has his own divisions, 2 divisions, right? Each one says you can become enlightened. The Vaibhashikas, well, they say it's a Pali tradition, but if you go there, nobody holds that view. But they do hold the Buddha, because the Buddha didn't. Buddha in that view said after death, Buddha's gone, no mind exists. Yeah, and that they take that literally to be true. But they say still there is a Bodhisattva path in that Vaibhashika system that takes you to enlightenment. Right? It's called the mind of all knowing. It just means you meditate on selflessness and you accumulate a lot more merit, which is basically what we're saying as well. But the view is different, right? The Prasangika also has two different views on Prasangika, and each one says you get to enlightenment. So they all say you become enlightened. But the Buddha taught that because he knew that's where the beings were. Those beings had to have that particular teaching. Otherwise, you taught them something else, they'd freak out. Right? So he had to give them that. Then when they're ready and they realize it's not there, it's not what he said, isn't exactly there, then they move up to the next stage. And next stage. Same with the Kriya Tantra, see. Some people are just at that level. They can't take, because high Sugar Tantra is huge. It's using the subtle energy drops, and you're using a console. That's the last thing you want to do when you're trying to give up attachment, right? So it's like, so people aren't ready for this, you know. So the Buddha had to be very, very secretive about this. He didn't give it to a lot of people. I mean, now it's given all over the place, you know, but it's like a very secret teaching. So that's why, yeah.
Well, I mean, they say, I heard that Lama Yeshe said that Westerners were perfect for practicing high Stika Tantra because we have so
Yes,
much
yes,
attachment
yes. I think
from the
maybe
same
because
past.
we're passionate about everything we do, we're gonna go for it all. You know, like we jump
Like,
on it like
I
anything.
mean, I guess Venerable Gendun, for me, I just need to land on a place where I can be
Mm.
clear because I don't want to have sort of a lukewarm or unclear vision
Yes, yes, yes.
on the deck. Otherwise, I'm
Yeah.
doing myself a disservice.
Then
So,
then you have to know. Then you have to go understand where you are. Do you want a little rest before you go back into samsara? No.
of course, I want to rest from samsara
Okay,
completely.
then go to Amitabha Pure Land, collect a lot of virtue. Then find out. Then find out that the high Yoga Tantra, you need to have a human body, because only a human body has all the subtle channels. See the drops, and then you think, oh, I had a nice break. I see my mum still suffering. I don't know where she. Like you maybe had clairvoyance, but then you see her all the time you've been Amitabha Pure Land. How many lives she's gone through since she left her, in all the different lower realms, and okay, I better go do something. To do that, I must have high sugar tantra. To that initiation, I need to be the human. That,
Okay, I understand.
like that.
And then if you really are practicing Guru devotion and you want to take really strong refuge in the Guru,
Mm. Mm.
then could the prayer be even more loose? Like, could it just be that you want whatever rebirth is the most beneficial according to your
Yes,
karma and the
yes,
most
yes.
beneficial to never be
Yeah,
separated from
yeah.
the
You
Mahayana
do
Guru
that.
or the Mahayana path? And then
Yeah.
I could just let it go completely.
Yeah, exactly. You give it up to him.
Okay,
Please, wherever I'm needed,
okay.
make it happen like that. Yeah.
I think this is
Oh,
better.
often Rinpoche often dedicates like that. You know, when he gets like the prayers for death, he says, whichever is beneficial for this person, as I appreciate human rebirth of Pure Land, may it happen like that. And he gives us.
Okay, I think
Mm.
I will choose that. Thank you very much.
Yeah, go for it. It's good.
Thank you, Venerable Gendun.
Good. Thank you.
I
Okay, yes.
I
Yeah, sorry, Barbara. Yes.
I was just going to say I have a question.
Mhm.
Concern that I have, or something that I think about, is I could get any human rebirths, however, not be exposed to the Dharma. Like I came to the Dharma in this life
Mhm.
very late
Mhm.
in my life,
Mhm.
and I guess I don't. When I get another human rebirth, assuming I will,
Mhm.
I want to go from the get go. Do you know what I'm asking?
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
don't want to start back from square one.
Sure, sure.
Does that?
Yes. So what you do is you make strong prayers. So like last time I said, make very strong aspirational prayers. You know, but all this village I created to benefit all Sundamis. I would love to meet the Dharma again. Meet my Mahana special connection with the teacher that I have faith, devote properly to that teacher as quickly as possible. So then you will meet as young as possible. It could be like 4 or 5 years old. You're probably born to a Tibetan family, or maybe I don't know, back in America. But this time you're a child of parents who are already Buddhist. You know, like Lama Osol's parents. You know, and bam, you're there. You're there. The Guru takes care of you, and you make that very strong connection. May I also be able to? Also, it's important, yeah, not just to meet, because to make it detailed as possible. and meet a special Lama connection and be able to devote properly to him. But just meeting him, then you're probably there. You're probably the child of his parents. You be, you get put in the lap. You see Lama Yeshe holding many children in his lap. But where are they now? Actually, because they probably met the teacher, and then that was it. Gone. No connection. So
Strong aspiration.
aspiration of rise, yeah, really strong. Yeah.
Thank
then
you.
You'll meet quickly as possible. Yeah. Yeah, it's true. It's true. I mean, you don't look that old, but anyway, you still have many years to practice. This every second counts. Now that you've met the Dharma, every second. This is when it becomes actually for you. It could be even more meaningful. You see, because now you see how many years you hadn't met. Now you met. It's like whatever time is left is so precious. Compared to somebody like maybe now who's in a monastery now, 4 or 5 years old, they haven't got a clue what they're doing. They became a monk for some merit, but they're just kind of going through the vibes of, the rituals, but they actually don't know what it means to be Dharma, Even Geshe-Tashi was in the Geshe in London for many years, resident teacher in London. He said until like 15 or something, he didn't really know what he was doing. He was a monk, but, debating, and then he realized what renunciation means, what samsara is actually talking about, Of course, some of them have never had partners and relationships. They don't know that part, but they see it's not so useful to be in that kind of life. It's very, very difficult to practice Dharma. So then they see the benefits of being ordained. Then it gives that kind of inspiration to keep going and to keep practicing on it.
Thank you.
Okay. So yes, the real refuge actually, of course, we talk about the Buddha, the Dharma, some historical Buddha. Then we go into minor tradition of course, the historical Buddha was kind of a manifestation of Om, and a Buddha who was enlightened before. Then we take over the Buddhas that came before. So we're talking about enlightened minds actually, which are still existing. And then we say, well, I take refuge in that Buddha's mind. So the Buddha's mind was, unlike us, we're bound by karma and afflictions. Buddha's minds are bound by great compassion. So great compassion means, how wonderful all beings are free of suffering. May they be free of suffering. I will free them from suffering. The responsibility is already there. If they're bound with great compassion, of course, then that led to bodhicitta. The Buddhas have got bodhicitta. So then, where are they? They're supposed to be working for us, right? Where are the Buddhas? So then, in our tradition, we go, they are the gurus. They are the gurus that you've taken personally as your teacher working for you. Right? That becomes a very strong connection, because then you tap into all the Buddha's mind, not just one Buddha, historical Buddha, one guru. All the Buddhas are there. So it's quite amazing when you read Heart of the Path by Rinpoche, Lama Rinpoche. It's going straight into this, like wow, it's mind blowing. You're not just like, oh, this is my, because we can also get very kind of very strong attachment. Oh, it's my guru, your kind of relative conventional guru. It's going beyond that. You see, they're coming from another dimension, right? To help you personally, because you have connection in this relative form as a human, and because they take this relative form as a human, they will show all kinds of ordinary aspect. Yeah, like getting a stroke, getting sick, eating. They won't come like the Buddha that we saw, the historical Buddha with the shining golden skin and kind of. They just come like an ordinary being, right? We have to wear glasses, like His Holiness saying, I had a gallbladder operation. He said, I think it was in Germany or something. He said, well, all you guys, like, because there were many people in front of the stage with wheelchairs asking for blessings and kind of looking for this cure. And he said, I'm just an ordinary monk. I've got nothing to give you. I'm just, look at the people who had gallbladder operations. Of course, many hands went up in the stadium. And me too, see? I'm ordinary. I had that operation. I'm not this perfect, like the $6 million man, I'm just an ordinary man. But of course, an ordinary figure, but the mind, perfectly pure. So they come, manifesting as this ordinary being. And we take refuge. So we have to go beyond kind of the relative figure that we're looking at, in that pure mind, the enlightened mind, the realized mind. And then the blessings become really strong, you see, because all the Buddhas are blessing. So what they say is sometimes, if you go into teachings really, really closely, they say, when you have this trust and faith that this being is actually a manifestation of a Buddha. So whether he is a Buddha or not, doesn't matter. If he's enlightened or not, doesn't matter. All the Buddha's energy will go into that being because of your faith, so your trust, right? Goes into that being. So that being himself probably hasn't got a clue that the Buddha's minds have entered. It's like the oracles. When it's an oracle, that the spirit comes, the oracle itself sometimes hasn't got any recognition because their mind goes into dormant state. You see, and the oracle comes. You see, a bit like Khandrila. When Khandrila, she came here because sometimes you see, when the oracle comes. Of course, she hasn't done the oracle thing here, but as far as I know, because I've seen pictures of her when the oracle comes. It's not pleasant. It's good. She really looks like Vajrayagini, Then her mind goes down, you see. I think she can't remember what kind of happened, you see. The oracle speaks from her. It's a bit like that. The Buddha's blessings, the Buddha's energy comes into his being. Then you reflect that at this person, this ordinary human being, as a Buddha, all the blessings come as if you're serving the Buddha himself, you see. So huge amounts of merit, you see. It's a very skillful way of practicing, actually. Very, very skillful. And they say even if, you see, it gets a bit tricky subject, but even if that being looks like they're angry or whatever, or whatever ordinary aspect they have, if you have faith and you devote correctly, you may become enlightened before this being does. Just because you have faith in this being, it's quite incredible, really mind-blowing stuff, Because it comes back to a bit like the story of remember the story of the old woman in Tibet who had a son who was always going to India for like business trips, and she was constantly asking, please, next time you go, when you're in India, it's the birthplace of the Buddha. If you find relics of the Buddha, please bring back some relics of the Buddha. So he went, he kept coming back, and he kept forgetting, right? So one time he went to India, came back. On the way back, he said, "Oh my gosh, I've forgotten. What am I going to do?" So on the way to his home, he saw a carcass of a dog. So he took the dog's tooth, cleaned it well, put it in a nice brocade, some cloth, and then unfortunately lied to his mother. Said, "Oh look, I've got this relic for you I found from India. Here's you." And the mother was so pleased, so overjoyed. Sure, finally remember, thank you. And she put it on the altar, and she was prostrating every day, saying all the prayers every day, meditating every day. And from the tooth came relics themselves. So relics can be like small, like pearl-like offerings from the tooth. Why? Because the faith she had in the object, you see, and the Buddha's blessings came. So similar to that. So it's very, very powerful. So that's why we don't talk about it so much in the beginning, but very powerful, the blessings we receive. That's why we do the request, before meditation, we actually do request, please help us to realize the stages of the path, have these developments, etc. Quite strong. Okay. Anything else people have? 8 o'clock. Okay, Shaman's left. Okay, we'll finish here, right? Go on tomorrow. Not tomorrow. Next week with the Sangha jewel. Okay. So we'll do some prayers at the end. So refuge. Okay. Yeah. So let's please go back to now to the Buddha in front. So we visualize in the beginning and the space in front of us, the Buddha image. So not just the image, it's the Buddha himself this time. And imagine he's completely happy what we're trying to do, trying to discuss about the Dharma, what the Dharma is, how to protect the mind, what can actually protect our minds. So he comes to the top of our heads, face the same direction as us, and then dissolves into a small sphere of golden light. And that slowly descends down to our crown, And it sinks down from the crown chakra, down throat chakra, and settles at our heart, glowing and radiating light all throughout our whole nervous system, our body and mind. We feel the blessings of the holy body, speech and mind of Buddha. And we get this inspiration, confidence that we can really change our minds. Slowly but surely, practicing meditating, we can slowly change our minds into virtue, achieve the same qualities as he did. So then, due to the merits of these virtuous actions, may I quickly attain the state of Guru Buddha and lead all living beings without exception into that enlightened state. Of course, we dedicate all to Lama, Zopa, Rinpoche, the Dalai, the wish-granting, wish-fulfilling jewel, a source for a single benefit and happiness in this world, to the incomparably kind Tenzin Gendun, I beseech, may all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. You who uphold the subdued moral way, who serve as a bountiful bearer of all, sustaining, preserving, spreading Manjanath's victorious doctrine, who masterfully accomplish magnificent prayers, honoring the three jewels, save of myself and others, your disciples, please, please live long. Then, Venerable One, to you whose kindness exceeds that of all the conquerors, for those wanderers in far-off places, especially the West, mindful of your loving concern for us, in intentionally descending again into a family of a far distant land, we make this request. O Lama, please, please live long. Okay. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.